For the next session, we are going to have a panel discussion on growth strategies from founders, from business owners, people who've grown their businesses. And I'd like to invite the moderator of the session, so Ariel Sumeruk, who's one of the mentors at Pranary. So he's the one that guides at Pranary, and we ask everybody else to come through. All right, a big hand for the panel, please.
You got your funding from the next session, so now it's really about managing business growth. And I was just wondering if maybe you can start, Trevor, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here today. Such an honor to always speak in front of so many smart people. My name is Trevor Mumba. I'm an entrepreneur. I've got a couple of businesses, my core business being marketing, which is clocking 15 years in the next few months. Other than that, I'm into cross-border logistics, so Botswana, Zambia, South Africa, Malawi, Zimbabwe. I'm into ranching. I do cows and pigs in Zambia and in Malawi. Media, sports consultancy. I'm a boring guy, really. I just work.
Okay, Graham?
Good afternoon. My name is Graham Wilson. I am the founder and CEO of a business called Whipping the Cat. We a legal consulting firm known as kind of a next law or new law firm, kind of breaking the traditional mold of the big corporate law firms, and offer a kind of far more kind of user-friendly, business-aligned type legal service. And I myself am a founder of that business. And in all that we do, we kind of try to have an entrepreneurial and business owner mindset.
My name is Nicolene. I'm the managing partner of SchoemanLaw Incorporated. I'm also an attorney, heading a couple of months away from the 20-year mark on my end. We've always been focused on the legal needs of entrepreneurs from a holistic point of view. The good, the bad, and the ugly, I always say. All phases and all seasons of your journey. I also have a number of interests outside the firm, so I often describe myself as a legal entrepreneur. So that's me.
Oh, thank you. I'm Ariel Sumeruk. I'm the founder and CEO of an internet marketing company based in Cape Town called Conversion Science. Nicolette, if we can start with you, maybe what are the most common challenges you observe when business try to scale, and how can entrepreneurs prepare for these?
I've got a bit of a different perspective. I think my colleague and myself would like to think that we're looking at a different way of practicing law. Well, maybe I shouldn't speak for anyone else. But from my perspective, I think as you grow and scale, one of the big things that we don't really sit down and think about is the fact that our relationships also grow in their complexity, in quantity, and often we hit a place within the business context where we have to do a bit of sifting of the various relationships. And when I mean relationships, I mean partner, your business partner, I mean funding partners, service providers, employees, consultants, everyone from a human perspective that is involved in the business. And I think the problem arises because often we are not strategic enough in our thinking when we select or forge these relationships, with the consequence that we do not document how we think we'll manage them when we go to the next level or things become tough. With the end result that something goes wrong, one of the human elements becomes involved, and then we hit a bit of a brick wall sometimes. So I think managing our relationships, selecting them with care and diligence, I think that's a very important consideration for that phase.
You want to-
Yeah, can I maybe add to
Sure,
that? I mean, I think Nicolene's point is absolutely like well made. And in terms of choosing a partner, certainly in our experience in lifestyle management of growing businesses, is that people's needs change. So just like people, businesses go through growing pains, and different people are going to experience those growing pains differently. But something happens in the lifestyle of that business in a growing phase, or your partner has a life partner, and that life partner gets a job in Dubai, and all of a sudden your little plan to have the two of you doing a business together shifts. And anticipating those kind of things and understanding what's going to happen if those eventualities play out, I think is kind of critical thinking that's needed right from the get-go, because it's difficult to unpick that when it happens 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line.
Let me just add to that quick. There's also another aspect to it. We grow and change as people. I'm not the same person that I was when I first started my business. And as I grow, I see it in myself. I'm just a little bit more calmer. So my employees, for example, that have been with me the longest, they think I'm softer on our newer employees than I was on them. So it's like a grandfather thing, like, but Dad, you were harder on us and not on your grandkids. I'm like, but I don't have the same fears that I had when I just started. Back then, I didn't have the kind of money that I have now. So there was always that fear at the back of my mind. What if this stops now? What if this happens? But I've got a whole great team of people that have grown with me. So I know what they're capable of doing. My confidence has changed, and that has changed me as a person. And fairly, that changes the people around me too.
So Trevor, as a follow-up in terms of that, because you already established there's a difference in different stages. So how would you approach, does approach to growth differ if you are in a different stage, in more general, from a startup to established SME?
So again, from experience, when I started, you know, there's a stage in your business where you are literally everything. I was the coffee guy, I was the cleaner, I was the CEO. I had to go to meetings and come back and prepare for something else tomorrow. And as you grow, you sort of take on different responsibilities because now you have a team. So I find that the way I allocate my time now is very different. So that allows me to just take time out of my business or businesses and look at them from a distance. So I find that the growth at which, or the rate at which growth happens in my businesses now is very different because I'm able to delegate more. I'm able to see or to look at my business from the outside in and see where we could be making mistakes before we even make them, where before I was making the mistakes because I was in the business the whole time. So I just find that as I'm growing now, if I have to build a business from scratch now, the progression it will take will be very different from the same processes that I applied many years ago in my first startup. That means if you take each one of my businesses as a startup, and then you start to look at them at different stages, you realize that at that stage, that guy wasn't there because we didn't know the kind of person to hire for that role. And then as we grow, we've hired a more professional guy, someone that knows what he's doing. So it's lessons on lessons all the time. Like they say, you mostly understand life by connecting the dots backwards. So if I look at where we are now as a company, let's say Rovet Marketing, which is our core business, the way I hire people now for different roles is very different from when we were starting out. And again, a lot of it has got something to do with me as an individual. There are certain understandings of business that I have now that I never had back then. There are certain fears that I had then that I don't have now. There's a level of finances that we have now, and we've got a little bit more of leeway in taking risks and trying out new things that we never had at different stages as a startup. I don't know if that helps.
Graham, would you like to sort of add a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think just building on what Trevor said, I know in the growth and lifestyle of my business, there was a time where I was thinking I need to find more of me's. So I was like, we need mini me's. And then I spoke to people much cleverer than me, and they pointed out to me that you're not going to find mini me's because mini me's are busy doing what you're doing elsewhere. So like the useful tip that I got was to actually kind of draw circles. I'm quite a visual person, so did like the guy said, draw circles of everything in your business that it is that you're doing. Marketing, accounting, making tea, whatever it is. And then kind of find people that can help you fulfill those roles. So versions of pieces of yourself rather than finding yourself, and that way kind of grow out and expand by kind of replicating roles that you actually were fulfilling yourself or that someone else could do better than you kind of in growing the business.
Oh, no, thank you. Nicolene, can you recommend how businesses can owners effectively balance growth with maintaining the quality of the company culture? Because obviously they cannot replicate yourself, as I say, you need different people, you've got different roles. How do you manage that in terms of a culture?
I think from my perspective, from my own experience as well, the starting point would be to define what your culture is. And that for me, I know there are varying theories on this, really starts at core values. What is important to you as the founder? Because as much as we would like to visualize our businesses, they are pretty much at the outset extensions of us in many ways. Extensions of the way in which we see the world or the way in which we would like to see the world or aspire to, and then of course the values. So I think the starting point is to establish what is the culture we would want to cultivate in our organization. And it starts from those tools, vision, mission, all of that. And then it needs to trickle down. And I think this is where many businesses don't really get it right in what I've seen over the years, is that we delegate to craft a message. It goes by many terms, the why, the deeper sense of purpose, which is very much, in my mind, the foundation of the values and the culture that we want in our organization. But that's a marketing message. We rarely manage to design that conceptually well enough that it can actually draw into the organization and find its way even to your employment contracts. So that if you wake anyone up in the organization, regardless of what role they fulfill in, they can tell you exactly who we are as an organization or as a team, what we aim to achieve. And from the outside perspective, I find a similar disconnect. And ultimately, when the authenticity connection, which is what I've coined it, is broken, that's when we see that we've got other disconnects within the business context. So I think key is to find that authenticity connection and to maintain it practically throughout the organization in every document and every sort of step you take.
Okay, thank you. Trevor, in terms of, so we all discussing in terms of people and stuff, so it's very important to have the right team. So in scaling, and we might need different people for different stages. So do you have any tips to share in terms of how to hire and how to retain staff during this growth period?
Yes. So this is more of an extension of, I think, what we've been talking about since the conversation started. So I find that if I look at some of the longest, in fact, all the longest serving employees that I have, I can sort of see what has kept them in the company the longest. And it's important to me to begin to pay attention to those patterns. And now that we've built these very strong relationships, these are conversations I actually have with them. Now, one of the most important things that I've noticed is, like she was saying, creating a company culture based on values. So with all the employees that have been with us the longest, that I consider my core team, the one thing I did very well with them was to emphasize that this is our vision as a company, and this is what I imagine, because I started the company. But most importantly, I want you as an individual, as Graham, to tell me what your vision is for yourself. So after I define the company vision for everybody, I tell them, say, this is what I want, because I started the company. But I don't think that's what you are here for. When you sat down to write that application letter or to send me a CV, what was the reason? What do you want, you? And how can I help you achieve that? So one by one, guys get very good in my company at understanding what they come to work for themselves, not for me. Because no matter how cool and grand the company vision is that I set, that's not why they came here. You know, so there are guys whose goal is just to make sure that by the time their mother dies, she lives in a good home, that they can take their kids to the best schools. They want to build this kind of a house, or they want to buy that kind of a car. So even when they start being lazy, and I can see that the work ethic is not where it was meant to be, I remind them using their own reasons. I'll be like, but George, when you started, you told me how you want to build this kind of a house for your mother. At this rate, you've missed so many days this month at work. You've been late so many times. I'm sorry, but your mother is not going to live in that house. And sometimes you see people crying. I'm like, no, I didn't mean to make you sad. It's just a reminder. So I find that by paying attention to helping individuals in my company work towards their goals, I've built a very solid team that understands where we are all supposed to go. And every single one of us is motivated by their own personal reasons. And the business then becomes the vehicle to take us there.
No, thank you. It reminds me of a comment that when I first started my business, asked for advice from another person who was a couple of further years down the line, and they said, look, the biggest challenge, they said, initially was to find people to work, and then the current challenge is managing those people. So in terms of the perspective changes as you grow.
True.
So yeah, I mean, if I could just put like the legal hat on that. You know, we've spoken about kind of funding and cash flow and that earlier in the day, and those are, in my experience, big touch points within a business. But the one that probably keeps business owners awake more than anything is staff. It's kind of staff-related stuff, and I'm not going to say staff problems, but it's the challenge of dealing with people within the workplace. I think keeps people awake a lot and is often a touch point within the organization. And a couple of things in dealing with that, I think, is kind of understanding, kind of having the right people doing the right work at the right time for the right for the right price. And you know, our employment law is kind of very regulated, but there are ways of kind of structuring your kind of workforce, the way you're operating, etc., in a way that is suitable and works for your team and that works for you. So I would really kind of put a lot of time and effort into figuring out how best to kind of right size your work team from a legal perspective, 100% from a cultural perspective, just to kind of try and get those sleepless nights down a little bit in your overall management of your business, because it is a touch point.
Okay, and Graham, do you mind maybe sharing some common pitfall or mistake you've seen business make when they try to grow too quickly?
Yeah, so again, in my experience, both as an owner and then working with, you know, with small to medium-sized businesses, kind of I'm quite a big fan of Stephen Covey, and one of his points in his habits is to begin with the end in mind. So even when you're starting and you're taking those first baby steps, you should have some kind of vision or understanding of what it is or where it is that you want to go. And I know when I started my business, I thought I was going to build something quick and fast, and some venture capitalist kind of guys would come in and snap it up, and I would retire young. And like after about 2 years, I realized, okay, that's not going to happen. But along with that realization was actually a realization that I'd built a really nice lifestyle business. And that was comfortable for me. I actually didn't look for a big exit. So I was very comfortable in that space. So in terms of scaling and growing, I think it's important to understand where you think you're going and where you'd want to be, but then to kind of be open-minded and practical in terms of navigating, changing, the cliche is pivoting, but figuring it out kind of where it is that business could be or where you would like to be through that life cycle. And the chances are it's not going to be exactly where you started when you said begin with the end in mind. That end may be slightly different to what you thought, but at least you got a plan and you know how to get there with some twists and turns along the way.
Nicolette, do you have anything to add there?
No, absolutely. I agree with what has been said. I think we need to also measure our progress. I think we were pretty good at measuring certain performance components of our businesses, for example, the financial side, but also performance is measurable across any of the relationships which we feel is directly correlated to where we are heading to go. And also maybe to reassess the ultimate end goal, because it does change, as we've also said earlier. It does evolve. It may take a different form than one initially anticipated. So I think there needs to be an openness in the journey. There will be mistakes along the way, and not all mistakes are complete failures. And of course, to surround yourself with advisors that can guide you and help you measure and reflect and get the distance in order to do so. I think that limits the mistakes one can make in the context of rushing to ultimate success.
And in addition to that, you need to define for yourself as an entrepreneur what growth you want for you, not because every conference you go to, they're using these big words. You need to scale. Like, what does growth look like to you? What would you want? What's sustainable? Do not bite more than you can chew. So I made so much money so quickly when I started my business, and that was bad for me. Within 3 years of banking my first R1 million, I was completely broke again. That's because I was growing too quickly. And I didn't realize it until after that I was taking on more than what I could handle. I was trusting so many people so quickly. So these are very common mistakes that people make. Okay, it's okay for you to run at the same pace for as long as you can until you figure out everything that you need to learn and understand about your business. Sometimes you're moving at the right pace, but there are certain situations that will come up that you don't know until later on in your business. And if you're not careful, those become blind spots and you grow too quickly, and then a situation that you could have avoided or maybe solved so easily has just come at a wrong time when you've put all your money into certain ventures that are only going to materialize lucratively way later. So just watch the pace at which you are growing. You don't have to keep doing things just because someone else is doing it. Can you handle it?
And if I can add a bit from my own experience in terms of mistakes, those are the best things that you learn from, a lot of the time, the mistakes that you make. And when your business is growing, you do need to trust your gut in terms of the principles and ideas at which you're trying to create, basically in hiring and also in the clients that you get. Because sometimes you're growing too quickly and you think, oh, I need to hire more people more quickly. You interview, you don't have a lot of time, you're under pressure, you think, well, maybe this person will work out. You normally doesn't feel 100%, but you hire anyway. And most time out of note, it actually doesn't work out actually to do things when you rush and you're not 100% aligned. And similarly, in terms of clients, sometimes you're desperate you're trying to grow, you're desperate to get all the clients. Some clients doesn't exactly meet the criterions. You already sense that it might be difficult, or there's some elements which don't correspond, and then you just do it because you're trying to grow. And most time of the night, you end up regretting it almost as soon as you sign. Trevor, in terms of, do you have any advice about businesses in terms of for growing sustainably? How do you actually grow this business sustainably given all these issues?
The first thing for me, with any entrepreneur really, when I get to talk about these things, is you need to be the best employee in your company. I think Egla mentioned it earlier, how forget about all these titles, you know. So I get to speak at different events, and when they ask me to send my bio, one of the things that makes me very uncomfortable very quickly is when I see them write CEO, because I've never used that title myself. If they CEO anywhere, I don't know if there is there. That wasn't from me. Because I call myself what I am in my business. I'm a director. I feel like I'm, what do you call them, a maestro. You know, that's what I do. I know when to tell that guy to bring his drums in. Let's go. And that flute in. You shut up now. You take it up from there. I feel like that's just what I do in my business. And I love what I do so much. I actually get emotional when you find me working. Like, this is how I feel. You know, imagine you played rugby or football for South Africa and you scored. Imagine the whole stadium is just, this is how I feel when I get into my office, because I love what I do so much. From there, nobody that works close to me has got an excuse to act any other way. And I always tell them, if you are not feeling it, it's not a cult. Leave. You know, and you should be so good at what you do that you can be free enough to tell your employees to say, the moment you are not happy here, please go. Because if you're keeping people that are not happy around you, you are creating a disaster for yourself. And they should never feel forced to be around you. You work here because you want to, okay? Okay? Yes, yes. You love the money? Yes. Cool. The coffee may not, is it great? It may not be the best, but it's up to you. You know, so for me, that's the first thing, really. And then just work as hard as you can, you know. Hard work will never go out of fashion. I always tell my younger employees that say, but I'm working smart. I'm like, that's important. We want that, but you can't take away the hard work. Okay, you will have to put in the hours. You will have to think as much as you can. You have to be the best at what you do. And for everything that I teach them, I just try and be the first guy to do it. For me, I think that's the most important thing. And everything just falls into place from there. And don't be a boss too quickly. So it's your business, yes, but there are roles that you can still play without delegating. If you've got the time, you've got the energy, why are you delegating? Because I know that's another thing that a lot of entrepreneurs do wrongly. We are so good at delegating even our own duties. So if you delegate everything, then what are you doing today? What's your plan? Gonna watch Netflix in the office? You know what I'm saying? So don't be a boss too quickly. Work, 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 work.
The question is tools for growth?
Yeah, tools for growth.
So, yeah, I mean, from my personal business perspective, I bought a lot of crap because I thought like tools were going to be the answer to everything. So I was trying my hand at everything, thinking that, oh, this is going to be awesome. This is what I need. And personally, as a business owner, like I burnt my fingers on more things than I was successful on, because I was looking for something to provide the answer to the question that I actually didn't have in my own mind. I didn't have the answer to in my own mind. So a tool's not going to solve your problem. You need to figure out kind of what it is, your need, your requirement, and then say, okay, what can I do that's actually going to enable this? Not kind of find a tool and say, okay, cool, this will make my business work. No, it won't. You need to find that enabling thing. Otherwise, I think you spend a lot of time and yeah, buying crap. And you can't just assume, you know, if you build a pipeline, the water will flow. You need to know that the water's there to flow, and then you build the pipeline, and then it flows. And getting that sequencing right, I think, is really important.
Just a quick addition to what Graham is saying. So we decided to also automate a big part of our sales business, and trying to look cool. The first thing we did was to buy iPads, you know. And you hire sales guys, they are new. The guys just worked in the company for 1 week. He's having a tough week. He just goes home with your iPad. Decides it's his now, and he doesn't come back to work, you know. So we're like, okay, but there are cheaper ways we can do things. What exactly do we want the iPads to do? Then we realized the same apps that could work on the iPad could work on 1,500, 2,000 Rand tablets. It's the same stuff, but we saved a whole lot of money. So just because you need to grow and automate and find tools doesn't mean you need to go to the most expensive ones. Keep it as functional as possible.
Well, thank you very much for all those great tips. I would like to open it up for any questions from the audience.
Oh, good day. So I just have one question, or a few questions, but however, thank you very much for your wonderful insights and experiences, as well as young guys who are in the space. We're actually learning a lot of things from you as well. So you mentioned a very significant thing, which is your systems and tools, leveraging tools on your business. So I just have this quick question. I think this would be for the people on the marketing side. So for example, you receive a lot of traffic and different clients from different industries. So this question actually comes from what we are actually experiencing. So what we quickly learned is that we're dealing with a lot of different people from different industries. So for example, you might be in marketing and someone else might be in sales, for example, and then you want custom solutions and different solutions from each other. And some people don't even know about what we offer, for example, specifically in AI. So we quickly learned that, okay, there is a educational gap in between. So most of the time we would spend time with clients educating them. This is how you use this. This is how it will be valuable into your business. And so we kind of not scaling at that point. But however, that experience of educating business owners, they actually loved it about AI. However, the problem now with automating all these processes and everything, it kind of cut that human element into the business by introducing these automation systems. So in dealing with that part in your business, for example, I think in the legal side, in the marketing side, how do you work around with such a problem?
Let me go first. So every business has got a target market. And I think your goal is to figure out very quickly. I think Justin talked about it earlier when he was talking about AI. Who are your hungry customers? And then there was another question there, which was, who are your ideal customers? Okay, you have to define that for yourself. Your customers won't define that for you, because remember, you're the one offering the service. So if you find that you are spending more time attending to people that have got no idea what you are doing, you created that expectation yourself. Because how have you built that website? Where are they finding that information? I'm not a chef, so if I find myself answering more questions about food, maybe I should go back to wherever I'm advertising my business. There's something I did not communicate very well, because where are people getting the idea from that I'm cooking? You get it, right? So you have to get very good at that. Secondly, I know one of the hardest things for young entrepreneurs, new people in business, is to say no. Just get good at saying no. Can you do this? No, I can't. Thank you. You can't. There's nothing else. Believe me, the right people will find you, and when you find the right people, you'll be able to help them with exactly what they need, which is what you do.
And I mean, maybe I can give you a real life example. You used the example of kind of like educating your clients. You said that like a few times. And in my personal experience, you have to be a little bit careful about that, because that can work, but sometimes it's actually not possible. So, I mean, in my business, I had an example where a bank approached us and said, we're looking for a nimble, flexible law firm who can help us because we're going to do this tech-savvy application, and we don't want to use our traditional big law firm to do it. We want someone nimble. And that's the kind of stuff I would do with a startup in a week. 6 months later, I was still working with the bank to try and figure out like phase 1 of their project. And I kept on trying to tell them, but guys, like, you should do it like this, whatever. It was impossible for me to educate them on the way I felt it should be done. It was a misfit. So they thought that they could move in kind of my direction in terms of what they wanted. I was trying to get them to move in my direction in terms of what I know they needed. But it's not a great relationship. So I think if you're spending too much time kind of trying to bridge that gap between what you think your clients want or how you can help them and it's not actually working, then maybe the fit's just not right. Educate less and move to the guys that get it.
Hi, good afternoon. So maybe for the attorneys, so starting out in the business, you're thinking about SLAs, NDAs, contracts, etc. Where does one go to for assistance in terms of navigating those waters? Because suddenly you're going like somebody slapping you with an NDA and going like, you need to either sign this, read this, and then you're busy with proposals, etc. A lot of it looks like common sense when you're reading it, but you clearly want somebody backing you, or you'd want somebody backing you before putting pen to paper on anything. How does one navigate those, or where does one go to for that kind of assistance?
I'll give it a stab. I think you need to find a legal support, a law firm partner that understands you and your business. There needs to, in my view, this is just my personal opinion, we are many very, very competent attorneys, but it's really about finding a fit that is acceptable to you from a pricing point of view, from a communications point of view, from a personal point of view. I think it's the level of professional relationship that you would have with a trusted physician, where there's that level of trust and connection, if I could put it that way. So I think first things first, you need someone in your corner. And what we often see as attorneys is that people wait too long before they take that step to say, listen, I've received the NDA or an SLA, and I think I know what it means. You know what my strategic objectives are. We've discussed this. You know me. What are your thoughts? Do you see anything I should be concerned of? Or I'm worried about this, or this is the other party we're contracting with, so that we can get a bit of a gist of, what to be on the lookout for. And often as entrepreneurs, and let's be honest, we've all been there, you do struggle to say no, right? You struggle to say no, and I think that comes with the territory of being super young, right? And inexperienced. And I think we often say yes to the wrong things, and we learn the hard way. And in many instances, because we were being penny wise and found foolish, as the old people would say, my gran would say that often, we then reap fruits of decisions that are sometimes quite difficult to overturn. So the point is, don't wait for something hairy to happen. Rather invest in finding that person price-wise, relationship-wise, that firm that can support you with that. There are also quite a few tools in the marketplace, so I think that's also something to look at.
Yeah, I'm just picking up on the physician example, right? So if you got a headache, you think I've got a headache, I'll be fine, I'll take a Disprin, right? Or Panada, whatever. And you kind of got a sense of comfort that, like, this is a headache, I'll take a Disprin and I'll be fine. So if there's a document that you think, like, I can actually read this thing and I make 100% sense of it, I know exactly what this says. It's not like, ooh, I don't understand what that word means, but I think it will be fine. Because in my example, you say, ooh, I've got a headache, but I've actually got a bump on the back of my head here that's been growing out for the last 2 weeks as well, right? That's a thing that you don't understand. Now, in that case, you'll go and see a doctor, right? You won't just say, okay, I'm going to keep taking a Disprin and hope that the bump that's in the back of my head will go away, right? So just trust your instinct on that kind of stuff, saying, I don't understand this, right? I've got this bump, I need to go and see someone about it. So when there's something that you don't understand, find someone to help you.
Just on his question early on pertaining to AI. So what our business does as well is we create AI agents so they replace actual workers. So on a legal standpoint, like we're going into a company and we're creating our own business analyst AI agent. You have your project manager, you have your software developer. In the next 3 years, we won't have any software developers because AI will take over those jobs. But on a legal standpoint, how do we, okay, firstly, we're obviously going to push this into companies, right? But now we're losing employees. And as a business, we try to sell the solutions to companies, but there's obviously that where the company is going to kick back and say, no, but we actually need these employees. So what does one actually, how do you actually sell that type of solution to them firstly? And if they are worried about this stuff, what do we actually do about that? Or what can we advise them on?
I think that needs a white paper. Okay, so AI from a regulatory point of view is still very young in South Africa, as with many other technologies. It's not the only technology that has regulatory, is in its infancy from a regulatory point of view, okay? We have seen some international movements overseas, particularly in Europe and in the US, of liability claims of AI-driven, specifically chatbots, right? And when they give specific responses that the business who has deployed it on its brand has been held liable. So it depends what exactly your AI can do, I would say, and that's why I say it needs a bit of a white paper from my perspective, to look at the risk. I think there's also a bit of a social consideration. That's not a legal consideration, but there's a bit of a social consideration from a South African context. We do have high unemployment rates. I hear you that as employers, often the employment side of our business does give us a lot of headaches. So I hear all of that and I get that. But I do think we shouldn't forget the social aspect of why, from my perspective, this is merely my opinion, as South Africans, we are driven to succeed. I think specifically, from my perspective, we are trying to ensure that more of our young people have something to look forward to, and that we have less people that walk around on our streets every single day that have no sense of where tomorrow is going to go or what it means. So I think there's a bit of a social element, but it would be an interesting discussion to take offline.
I have the two questions, Sandra, so hopefully no one else has any question. Yeah. Hi. So I'm the managing partner of a law firm in Zambia. I don't know how much you know about Zambia, but just a few years ago, the law changed to enable law firms to advertise. Previously, we couldn't. So I would like to know from the attorneys, how have you used digital marketing, and where are you seeing the most return from it? And then my second question is to Trevor. I hear your advice about just saying no, but at the same time, one needs to grow. And so how do you grow by doing things you've never... you only grow by doing things you've never done before. So how do you balance playing it safe with taking the risk in order to grow? Thank you.
I'll be quick. Okay, so we have also had advertising restrictions in our profession. Some restrictions remain in terms of touting specifically, in other words, putting yourself out as the best and the only and so forth, to oversimplify the concept. I find that people are empowered by knowledge. Knowing what the options potentially could be has been very successful for me. To be honest with you, I was in content marketing when I started the practice almost 20 years ago. Back then, we didn't call it that. Back then, it was something I used to do to keep myself accountable to learning new things on a monthly basis. It was my way of making sure that I would learn one new thing at least that made me seriously uncomfortable, that would challenge me, that would make me nervous. Those are requirements to the content I produced. So for me, the content marketing has been super successful. And we've grown in our digital space organically over the years, simply by having regular content, different types, but targeted to who you are trying to reach.
I think that means there's some brief one-sentence rule. Do you think that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, so interestingly, so our business is called Whipping the Cat. It's not a law firm, so it's an alternative legal service provider. And in my experience, people don't really mind. I mean, we won Africa's smallest law firm of the year award 4 years ago. We're not a law firm. So I think people's perception is kind of, can you deliver the service? Are you able to do what you say you can do, rather than kind of like being in a silo of saying we are a law firm. It's more about what can you do.
So, Trevor?
Okay, and then your answer. I remember when I was young, I don't know who remembers the movie, The Yes Man. Do you remember the amount of problems the guy ended up in because he just couldn't say no? Do you remember? So there's also balance to this, right? You also can't just say no to everything. You're also going to end up in a lot of problems. So I think learning to say no comes down to your individual principles, but also your line of work. So within your line of work, what does the regulation say? What do the regulators say? Can you actually say, I don't think it's possible to keep saying yes to things that you can't do. And you should know that by yourself based on what you do. So that's what I meant. Anything that's outside my scope of work, my scope of what I define as growth, my goals, I will say no to because it does not serve me in any way. And if I try to please that person just by saying yes, I'm not helping them. I'm actually wasting their time. The earlier I say no to Graham, the earlier I let him go and look for the help that he really needs, which I can't provide. And then there's another principle that governs me across my different businesses, even as an individual, right? If it's not right, it's wrong. It's that simple for me. So is it right? If it's not right, it's wrong. That's all.
Well, thank you very much. I think there was one, if we can have one more brief question, and that, yeah, from over there, and the last one.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Rolf. I'm a social and business entrepreneur. So I wanted to ask a question directly to you, Trevor. As you know, when entrepreneurs or when our businesses are scaling up, one of the issues really is on the people side. And at times we tend not to be able to divorce ourselves mainly from the operations of the businesses. But then, as you were saying when we started, you're saying the best or the environment for you really to think well as an entrepreneur is when you are sort of like outside the business. How have you managed to do that? Because obviously, being a serial entrepreneur, managing a lot of businesses, you can't be directly involved in all of those. But that element of trust, that element of letting go of the things that you're already doing, I'm sure I'm not the only person, but it's a struggle. How did you get over that hurdle? And
it was hard for me too. You know, there's a point in your business where you are so emotionally attached. This is my baby. This is why it's very hard to also take advice at some point, because you hear what people are saying, but you're like, but this is mine. You know what I'm saying? So detaching yourself from certain responsibilities becomes even harder. However, if you've worked so hard at your business, right, and you have goals that you need to achieve, and this is now me giving you advice based on what I did specifically. The first time my business collapsed part of it was because of that. I just didn't know when to not do certain things. I wanted to be everywhere at all times, and it just wasn't possible, So I had to learn to trust people. Now, you don't trust people, right, by them coming to you saying, I need help. You actually go to them and say, I need help. I got so comfortable with asking my employees around me to help me as a person, as an individual, as a human being. I need your help. How do you see this? And that just changed everything else. And what I started doing was to pay a lot of attention to the kind of people I was hiring. I became so comfortable hiring people smarter than me. So trusting them became easy. And when you trust people, you'll be shocked at the level of commitment that they come with, because trust is a big thing. They feel it. This guy has really trusted me with this duty today, this week. I'm in charge of this. I can't let him down. And I know it's very hard. Sometimes you trust people and they just go and do nonsense. But in my case, I feel grateful that when I trusted people around me, they really came through for me. And that sort of helped. There's just this burden that lightens up as you share some of your worries with people. And sometimes all you need is just perspective, a different perspective from your own employees.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank all the panelists. Thank you very much for all your wisdom.